Hello, Peter.
Hello.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to quickly start in German, but I'm going to switch back to English just to explain a few things. Willkommen zurück beim diesjährigen Ereignisraum Berlin, beim Reeperbahn Festival 2020. Für alle, die vorher noch nicht zugeschaut haben, mein Name ist Matthias Strobel. Ich leite den Bundesverband für Musiktechnologie hier in Deutschland. Und ich freue mich, dass ich jetzt diese Masterclass hier mit den 3 Experten von 3 wahnsinnig innovativen und wichtigen Unternehmen jetzt hier die nächsten 60 Minuten befragen darf und mich mit denen in eine Unterhaltung über deren jeweilige Softwarelösungen stürzen kann. Weil aber alle, die hier sitzen, keine Muttersprachler Deutsch sind, werde ich ab jetzt in Englisch switchen und werde aber versuchen, die einzelnen Präsentationen, die die jeweiligen Leute gleich halten werden, nochmal in Deutsch zusammenzufassen, wenn wir dann soweit sind. So again, welcome everyone. My name is Matthias Strobel. I'm running Music Tech Germany, which is the Federal Association for Music Technology. And I'm extremely happy to now have the opportunity to talk to these 3 amazing and innovative people who created tools and services for artists to find a way to sustain a living with their profession and with their art they're making without losing focus on the creative part, which is at the heart of each of the artists, as we know. We are not in Hamburg. We are screening live from ALEX Berlin. And this entire masterclass was made possible by a collaboration with buero doering and was supported by Berlin Partner. And so, yeah, without any further ado, I would like to introduce my 3 guests. So on my left is Peter Harris. On my right is Peter Harris. Peter is the founder and board member of Resonate, a community-owned streaming service, which we will get into later. On my left is G. G is the UK and Ireland Creator Partnerships at Patreon, right? And Thomas Phillips, who is here for Steertone, which is a company that he has founded, is about to found, is about to see the light of the day. So all 3 of them have a totally different approach to how they want to make the life of artists better. And to give you a better understanding of what each of them are doing, each of them will give a little short presentation to make it easy to understand what their services are about and how they're trying to fix this broken system that we have in not only the music industry, but in the industries for all creators. And so yeah, let's start with G. I'm super happy to have you here. G works for Patreon, and if you don't know what Patreon is about, she's going to tell you now.
Thanks so much. Hi, I'm G. I'm from Patreon, and I look after the creative partnerships. So what that means is I work with creators who are looking for a way to make a sustainable living as an artist and connect with their fans, which is obviously particularly important during this time when live touring is kind of off the cards and people are looking for alternative ways. And I've got a short presentation. Are we doing that now?
Yeah, now will be a good time to show your presentation.
Let's do it.
Cue presentation.
All right, let's see. A little, oh, there we go.
Ever since I was little, all I wanted to do was create clickbait.
We can always count on the algorithm to pick which one of our fans should see our work.
I don't really need to get paid for my work. I'll just eat my likes for breakfast.
Monetization on YouTube and online is not always a given.
Can't really expect what Big Daddy algorithm is going to do for you this month.
I've decided that I'm sick of waiting on permission.
Love getting pennies from the fun out of our demonetization music while everyone else gets rich.
The aim and the vision is to be more direct action.
If I'm not gonna get cast in the roles I wanna get cast in, I'm freaking gonna make them myself.
And that was the point where I started considering to go to my fans directly.
Because of you guys, we've
been able to be completely free to be ourselves and speak our minds.
You are making my album possible.
The people.
So I wanted somewhere where I could interact with my closest fans in a way that's direct and honest.
These are the people who care the most. I am able to keep creating week after week, month after month.
Here's a new costume I'm working on.
Basically following my passion, finally.
That was awesome. So tell us, what did we just watch?
So that was a little bit of like a taster of some of the creators who are on Patreon and what they are there for. So the way that Patreon works is that you run a membership and you offer things like bonus content, exclusive content to your fans, and then or more direct access, and they pay a monthly subscription in exchange for that. And the way that that monthly subscription, it comes together in towards like a monthly income for creators, so they know what to predict month to month. They can start to plan for their future, whether it's personal, whether it's creative, whether it's investing in their creative businesses. And it also allows, like, one of the things there, you know, creativity over everything. It's really about not waiting on permission to do something. It's not about being the most marketable artist. It's about you have fans who want to see you succeed, and they want to see you thrive, and shaking up this creative economy, which is really an exciting thing to be a part of.
Cool. Let's see if we can pull up this presentation that that you brought with you, and so you can explain a little bit in more detail how Patreon works and what this is all about.
Resonate is an ethical music streaming cooperative featuring the work of over 2,000 independent artists. Open source and fair trade, it's a place where artists, active listeners, curators, and developers.
So, okay, this was obviously not the presentation, but it was the beginning of a really exciting video that you're probably going to see again later. And if there is no presentation, then we can just talk about Patreon that way. So, what brought you to Patreon? Are you an artist yourself, or are you connected to creators, or what was your motivation to start at a company like Edwin?
Yeah, so I was actually working in event programming, so I was doing a lot of live music booking, and I saw a lot of creators, both in music but also in podcasting and art, who I thought were amazing. And I started to watch them on Patreon. They're growing their fan base, and they're starting, you know, some of them had their earnings listed, and I was like, this is incredible. These people are really making this like a viable career option. And they had goals set where they said, when I hit this amount, I'm going to go full time on the podcast. I'm going to take another day a week to do my music. And that was just so exciting for me, because I could see that it was such a hard industry, from being on the booking side and like seeing artists struggling and touring, and you know, obviously that's a very rewarding part of being a musician, but it's not always the most financially sustainable. So I was always really interested in Patreon, and when we opened a Berlin office at the beginning of this year, and as soon as I saw the job come up, I was like, I have to be a part of that. It's just so exciting. And Patreon's grown obviously enormously during COVID. We've had 3 times as many musicians joining from March to May as in previous years. And it's just been really cool to see that as like a source of income. Oh,
cool. All right.
Presentation.
It's like we are
you have a
ready
clicker
now. So do you wanna click through it and talk about it?
Well, we're Patreon. We'll skip this one. So Patreon powers memberships for artists and their most passionate fans, which I've sort of touched on a little bit to begin with. In case you're not familiar, there's a few kind of quick stats about us. We were founded in 2013 by Jack Conti and Sam Yam. And Jack Conti is actually a musician himself. He's in a couple of bands. He was touring. He was filling venues with a couple of thousand people. He was making these incredibly intricate YouTube videos. with like robots and tons of production and getting millions of streams. Then he was getting a check from YouTube at the end of each month for like a couple of $100s. And it was like the discrepancy between the amount of time and money invested versus the money he was getting in ad revenue. He saw a problem. And so he founded Patreon with Sam Yam. And then since then, we've got over 200,000 creators, and that's just growing. And they're all running membership business, which is being supported by 6 million patrons. And this year, we hit a big milestone, which was that creators had earned over $2 billion through Patreon, which is really cool. And in a few months' time, they're on track to be earning $1 billion a year. So it took 7 years to get to $1 billion, then this year to get to another $1 billion, and then $1 billion every year going forward, which just shows it's sustainable. It's a way as a creator to make an actual living. And we released our valuation for the first time a couple of weeks ago, which was Patreon was valued at $1.2 billion, and it's just wild to think that 7 years ago, this didn't seem like a viable option. Like, people didn't think this was going to work, and now to see that, part of the reason we wanted to share it is it shows how much the creative industry and the music industry is being shaken up, and how this is a really, a way to make money as a musician. Internationalization is huge for us. As I said, we opened in Berlin at the beginning of this year. And our website's now in English and German. And by the end of the year, it's going to be in Spanish and Italian and French. So that's a little intro to us. And then this is kind of some of the musicians who are on Patreon. So we've got Einsturz and Neubauten, MIA, Katie Tunstall, Kate Nash, Arca, Judith Holofernes, Kimbra. And they're all running Patreon pages where they're able to connect with their fans, monetize content which otherwise wasn't being seen. And just have a bit more independence over the process. So I recommend checking out their pages, see what they're doing. And there's a few reasons why artists choose to work with us, and maybe why any creators who are watching this might want to consider looking at Patreon, is that you have the ability to have creative control, freedom, and independence. So you have a direct relationship with your fans. You make the content that's exciting for you, that your fans want to see, even if it's not the most marketable, the most like monetized on YouTube. You don't need to worry about posting 3 times a day on Instagram so that your fans actually see things. Like, it's about making meaningful content that you're excited about, that your audience is invested in. We offer you a direct relationship with your fans. So when you get fans signing up as patrons, you get their email addresses, you get their shipping addresses. You can integrate that into like a wider plan. You've got this direct line to your most dedicated audience. And I think this is obviously the one that most people know about, but it's a predictable and consistent source of income, which is very rare in a creative industry, to month on month know what you're going to be getting and be able to, predict that, invest in your business, invest in yourself, make big life decisions. It's really exciting. And so I just wanted to show a quick example of like what Patreon actually looks like to visualize some of the things I'm saying. This is MIA's page, and she's got 3 different membership tiers from $5 to $50, and that's totally up to the creator. You can do it for a couple of dollars for someone who just wants to support you. You can even offer things for 150 euros for someone who wants one-on-one feedback on their music. They want to have a Zoom call, understand your journey a bit better. MIA, it's also a really cool place where it doesn't always have to be about music. If you have other things you're passionate about, other creative pursuits, if it's art, if it's food, if it's anything, film. MIA sharing behind-the-scenes footage of making her documentary, sharing recipes. It's just for like a more holistic view of the artist, which is really cool. And this was the video that I was going to show, but we've already watched it, so that was kind of me.
That was super cool. And as far as I understand, so Patreon is in the first place is for creators, for independent people that finally want to create a base of fans and get their fans to help them pursue their artistic career. But it could be also because the names that you showed of the people that are on board, some of them are not independent anymore. They are like big names. They might have a label in their back, and they might have an entire infrastructure. So it's not only something for people who are totally independent by themselves and want to do something, but it's also an additional feature for people who want to give something back to the fans and want to show them background stories and stuff like that. Do you see that people use, people in that kind of status that don't really need that money, but it still helps? Do you see that they rather use it for more fan engagement, to give them a window into their world that they wouldn't have without having the channel of Patreon? Or are they like, where's the focus? Like, is there like, can you tell that, especially for musicians, where are they mainly focusing on, like when they're using Patreon?
Yeah, no, you're totally right. I think it's for sometimes people who are more established artists, it isn't so much about the money. It can be about feedback on new projects. It could be about this connection. It's about getting to know their most dedicated fans. I mean, they kind of already have an idea of them, but they maybe don't have a space to connect in like a more vulnerable, more intimate manner. And Patreon really provides that because it's behind a paywall. You don't have this like huge public audience. You can be a bit more relaxed. And I think actually some of the musicians that I've worked with, what I've thought was really cool is that they maybe find touring a bit overwhelming. You know, they don't want to stick around after the show, hang out with their fans, but they do want to get to know them. And this provides, you know, they can do it through Discord, like have a chat forum. They can do like live stream hangouts, and they know that they've got this more safe space to connect with their fans. So every artist, every musician is totally different, and we really try and work with people to understand like what their motivations are, what they want to get out of the platform. It's super flexible. You can kind of set it up.
So you as a platform, you also like speak directly with the artists and help them to be like a creator that can produce stuff that makes sense in order to reach the audience. So you also have kind of a help desk for the creators.
Yeah, I mean, literally everything we do is really creative focused. So we have whole teams of people who will do things like one-on-one consultations or like workshops. We have community forums. It's about really empowering people to take control of their membership business. And we want to share as much in terms of data and best practices to make people successful. So it's, yeah, it's part of my favorite part of the job really is talking to creators every day and just like hearing like, what do you want to do? What is it that you want to achieve out of this? And let's try and make it happen.
Cool. Really awesome. I'm super happy that something like Patreon exists, but I'm also happy that something like Resonate exists, which brings me to Peter Harris, who, as I said at the beginning, is the founder and board member of Resonate, which calls itself a community-owned streaming service. It's something that just lately, like people who are connected to the music industry and people who are musicians themselves or artists have like heard or have been part of all the discussions about payouts of streaming services, and that as an artist it's really a struggle to make a living out of that, and so on and so on. So what you're doing is more like, let's say, an artist-centric streaming service, which is community-owned. Do you want to explain us a little bit deeper how Resonate works and what your vision was when you came up with that idea? So should we just quickly run through your presentation, or do you want to...
Maybe do the video first.
Video first.
That one follows the other.
All right, so you need that. So let's have a look at...
The video was there just a moment ago.
What Resonate is about. But there we go.
Resonate is an ethical music streaming cooperative featuring the work of over 2,000 independent artists. Open source and fair trade, it's a place where artists, active listeners, curators, and developers govern the community as voting members. Membership is free and non-exclusive for artists and labels that share tracks. Listeners pay to stream tracks at rates that double for each of the first 9 plays. This way, listeners start as explorers and become backers, on average paying artists at more than twice the rate of corporate platforms. Resonate. Play fair. Resonate.
Yeah, so that's a brief intro, and then we could just roll right into the presentation, and I'll explain a little bit of what you saw there and what it's about, what it means.
Since when you are around, like when did you start with the company or the cooperative? It's not a company, right?
It's a cooperative.
It's a cooperative Resonate.
Yeah.
When did the entire journey start?
It started in about March of 2015, where the idea was like literally entered my mind at the kitchen table. And it took a couple of years before we had the co-op founded. We did a crowdfunding campaign and it, to build some awareness and everything. So the co-op itself was founded in 2017, so it's just a little over 3 years old.
Wow, cool. All right, let's get into it.
Right, so we start with stream to own, which we saw briefly in the little graphic where you have the 3 dots. And we'll get to the co-op angle in a minute and why that was really the starting point. But then when it was clear, like I had to have a different model for streaming, I did a lot of research and found a whole lot of criticism about the dominant streaming services and in the way that their big pool calculations work. And what that means is that all the money's dumped into a single pot and then it's divided up according to the volume of streams. But if you like independent music, as I do, what that means is that your money's actually going to really big names every month, and it's not going to the people that you're actually listening to. And so this is where Stream to Own was born, and it's about getting to an economic model that's more economically sustainable. And so the pricing is off of the download, because we saw this huge shift from streaming and away from downloads. And so I thought, well, what if you had the same earnings from downloads in a streaming context? And so that's that 9 dots. It starts off really cheap and then doubles in price until you get to the full price of a download. So it's not more than what you used to pay for downloads. And looking at the numbers, it's much higher payouts than the other services. So that was the idea of the listening model. But really, the foundation of the whole thing is about the fact that it's community owned. A cooperative is a democratic organization, a democratic entity, and so the whole membership decides. And this is very, very real and can be expressed in the contrast between, say, a company like Spotify, where the founder is valued at something like $1 billion or more, and myself, who's valued at whatever's in my pocket. Because as the founder, I don't receive anything else any more than any other individual in the organization, and that's democracy in a company. Co-ops have been around for 150 years. Some say it started in Germany, some say it started in the UK. And so we're trying to bring that into the music technology space, and it's going really well. And I think that where I hope to see this all go, both for Resonate itself and for the larger conversation, is about interdependence. And this is a term I borrow from a friend and a former board member also of Resonate, Matt Dryhurst. He's the one that kind of coined this term in the music space. And he's been talking about this for years now, that the larger dominant culture that we're in has put such a focus on individualism that we've lost the roots of what music community really used to be, and we've lost a connection to some of those larger dynamics. And so he's been saying this quite a bit, and it's really the thing that inspires everybody that participates, is that we need to be in this together, because we can't survive alone. And I think that's more pertinent now than ever. So with that, I would say we could just...
That was a good ending of the entire story, because there's so much more to it than just building a new streaming service and trying to find a different model, which is already hard enough because it's such it's an oversaturated market that even companies that started as a streaming service have now expanded in other areas, and in the podcasting space or video spaces and so on and so on and so on. So. And I think what you're trying to achieve with Resonate is something that I think a lot of people can relate to, because most of the people, either they don't bother what the entire music streaming service system out there is, because they just want to have the commodity of getting easy access to millions of songs. But most of the people who are true fans and who really care about the artists that they're listening to, they also want their artists that they are a fan of to be able to make a living and to sustain a living with their art. So I think that the crucial part is probably to convince as many artists as possible to use Resonate as a service and to go on that platform. How many artists, do you know out of your head how many artists you have on Resonate right now?
I would say we're in the realm of active and engaged, a few thousand. Quite a bit more signed up over the years because we started doing signups like 3 years ago. And the one downside to the whole co-op model is we don't build as fast as somebody that's funded by venture capital, because venture capital, well, I could do a master class on that for another hour.
And I know that. So, but the other question is, Resonate is not only for artists. I can also use it as like an independent label where, I mean, if an independent label is on other streaming services these days, it's the same issue. They don't get like the place paid of the songs of their artists. They get something out of the pocket which is left, or out of the pot what is left at the end. Yeah. So do you have labels as well signing up with their artist or with their entire catalog, or is it like? Yeah,
quite a few. Hyperdub, Planet Moo are a couple of the bigger names that came in. And we've worked with Cargo for distribution and to accessing the catalogs and stuff. But our whole focus really is mostly on the personal level. But I think from having conversations with folks from those labels, they're there because of the values and the ethics, and they know that we're pushing the edge or pushing the envelope on the topic of fairness and equality and fair trade and all that stuff, and it fits their own values. And
so that's something that gets more and more important these days anyway. Yeah. Like a lot of more people getting aware of these facts that that kind of cost the entire society and ecosystem that we're living in today. So
yeah, it's not just in music. I mean, people are starting to get that, like, oh, if I buy from Amazon, I'm actually making Jeff Bezos obscenely fucking rich, and
it's just too easy, that's why easy. People are doing it, and that's what brings me to the next question. As an artist, how difficult is it for me to get my songs onto Resonate? Do you have partnerships with aggregators like CD Baby or distributor, stuff like that, or do you?
Not yet. No, like I said, we've worked with Cargo, but it's still also in a very rudimentary stage because, to really do stuff at scale, you have to have lots and lots and lots of code, a ridiculous amount of code, and so we've done a lot of what we've got there through a combination of code and just brute force manual labor, and so it's. We couldn't go to like working with CD Baby or District. Well,
how can an artist sign up to Resonate?
They actually have to request. We're actually in an interesting transition stage, and it's been really fascinating to watch. I'm not like involved I'm a little bit on day-to-day operations, but we're in a transition stage on the whole profile infrastructure, and so as a temporary measure, the team decided to put up send in a request, and and we'll let you know when we've got it back up again. And the dialogue that's around that has just been amazing. Just watching the comments that come in, they saying like, and they're talking again. It's that question of alignment. They really feel the sense of the values, that we embody their values, and so they're really welcome to be a part of that and excited to be a part of that, even if they have to wait.
I like that people can send in a request, and then or not you personally, but your team takes care of the onboarding of this artist. This is something that you and Patreon have kind of like in common, that it's really centralized on the artist's demand and artist's requests, and you really take care of them, even though it's a rocky and long road, and you probably are not able to get a huge amount of artists on board on your platforms because you are doing it in this kind of personal way. But of course, that's the valuation of like the artist himself or herself is something that they experience with your services, but they probably won't with other services. So that makes you pretty different from all the other competitors, if you want to call it that way, that are out there. Before I want to ask you a couple of more questions, I would like to introduce Thomas Phillips. Thomas is the founder of Steertone.
Thanks.
The founder of Steertone, and he used to be head of repertoire income at RightsUp, correct?
Exactly, yeah.
And head of business development at Hymeta Technologies, which kind of like was the fundamental basis of Steertone, if you want to call it that way. And your approach is a different one. It's not so much community focused, but your work is not less important than the other ones, because you're dealing a lot with metadata and with song structures and helping artists to be able to take control of their music and the income that comes with it, correct?
More or less. I will develop as the presentation goes on, but thanks for the introduction. Yeah, I called the presentation behind the scenes exactly because actually we don't serve the artists directly, but we serve music companies that serve the artists in turn. So could be, for example, Resonate or Patreon. And our idea is actually to improve one of the biggest issues that I saw when I was at RightsUp is data or metadata and the exchange of data between partners. Without a good data, you don't have a good data exchange, you don't have a good money flow. And I'm super glad that companies like Resonate and Patreon exist, because I really feel like that's one of their main objectives is to really get the artist or get the right money in the right pockets, basically. So our idea is to, as I said, to improve data exchange. I'm gonna pass this one. But first of all, as you said, maybe a little point about Steertone. We still don't have a website because we just changed our name really recently to Steertone. The project was called Hymeta Technologies before, and we have the same executive team as Hymeta Technologies, same mentality and same solutions, and we just changed for a couple of reasons. I'm not going to go into it right now, but we can talk about it after if needed. A very quick presentation of or introduction of the team. So Nicolas Ruben worked for 15 years at Sabam, so he's got the author part. I got the neighboring rights part, and Nicolas Barbiero in the middle is our sound technology specialist, kind of the mastermind behind all the technology that we provide, or the solutions that we provide. We operate as kind of, you could think of us as an IT consulting company because we listen, analyze to a music company's problem. We develop and integrate a solution, and after that, hopefully, we can increase or get better results, or the music company, thanks to our technology, gets better results, which then in turn will translate to better results for the artist, and hopefully in a financial way. So we always have a sound-centric approach. Why is that? Because we believe that in data exchange, and specifically in the recorded music industry, the sound is actually the sound wave is the only asset that doesn't change. Nowadays, you even have artist names that change. A lot of data can change, but the sound wave is actually the only truth, and we always keep this in mind when we tackle a problem and we try to find a solution. And as I already mentioned a couple of times, we focus on data exchange between music companies because we want to make sure that the money flows correctly, and this is only possible if the data is flowing equally as well. So. Moving on to a couple of examples that we provide. Smart monitoring, for example, we built a customized monitoring solution that is adaptable to any client's needs or any music company's needs. The idea here is to really be cost efficient because it's not always really cheap to have a monitoring solution. And if you are a smaller company and you still want to have this correct data, we want to be able to offer it to you. We are also focused on short content and short broadcast because if you, as an artist, you composed a small jingle of 1 or 2 seconds, it's not always possible to recognize it easily. And so we make it possible thanks to our technology. Bottom line is that we try to have an increased precision on radio and television monitoring. Just going to get a little bit of water before moving on. Next example is the steer key. The steer key is an alphanumeric code that can be used in any data exchange process, and it's based on the sound wave. So that's really the particularity of it. Instead of having a human or a company creating a code, here you really have an algorithm that looks at the sound wave, creates a code, and then you can exchange, when you have to exchange data with a partner, you can use this code so that there is no confusion anymore as to which track am I talking about. I think that's pretty interesting, exactly when we talk about data exchange and all the problems that are related to this in the industry. The third one is gaming videos. So you probably know that a lot of gamers film themselves and then upload their videos on YouTube or Twitch or other platforms. And it's not always possible, or let's say that platforms are not always equipped with the right tools to really identify if it's a valid license that this gamer has or not. And so we want to enable, when there is a valid license between a gaming company and the rights holders, that it should be uploaded on YouTube. And so we are whitelisting this content as opposed to blacklisting to allow to upload the video with the original soundtrack of the game. And then the last example is pretty useful in the anti-piracy, in an anti-piracy scenario. We created a unique ID per downloaded copy. So, for example, if we both download the same track on a legal website, obviously, normally you cannot distinguish if there is a leak afterwards. You cannot distinguish if it was my track, your track that was leaked behind it. With our technology, we can do that. So we can retrace the buyers or the users' information. We're not going to sue them, but we can offer this technology or solution to any company that would like to benefit from this solution. So that's it. About
oh, that's a lot of technology.
Yeah, it's a lot.
But it's such an important topic, and since this is a masterclass. And you have just changed your name, and your website is not out there yet. Mm-hmm. But I think it's something that's crucially important for independent artists as well as for the companies out there that have a big catalog of artists, in order to even provide the fundamental basis for all the other services out there to onboard music in general, so that all these other services, who knows what will come out in the next couple of months or years, are actually in the position to pay the rights holder the money that they are deserved to be paid, even though the business model of some of these platforms might be not super fair, but they would need to have the assets in order to pay rightfully and fairly. So me as a music company or a label or publisher or as an artist or whoever wants to use your service, how will it work once you are out there with your website and everything? How will the process be?
So, as I said earlier, actually I could go back to this particular slide. First of all, so we are really oriented to the needs of the customer. So it really depends if you're a label or a DSP, for example. But the idea is, as you mentioned, is to really focus on all or have new foundations for data exchange. I realized that when I talk to companies that are, let's say, more established than our companies here, they often think more about new features, new marketing or promotion tools, rather than really working on the fundamentals. And that's why actually it's great that Resonate Patreon exists, because they focus really on what's true. It's okay, you create music, you should be paid for it, and the rest is something else and it's less important. And so we're gonna, with the time, we're gonna have more standardized solutions, and the solutions that I explained during the presentation will be clearly explained on the website. And it will be easier for you as a company to just go have a look at the different solutions and services that we propose, and then pick the one that you think is the best for you. For example, the anti-piracy solution, some companies really don't have any problem with the fact that some of their content is being leaked. For others, it's becoming a priority because we think it's finished, but it's still actually a big problem. So it really depends on what the company needs, basically.
You're going to partner, for example, like if you would partner with Patreon, and Patreon would offer your copy ID, was the name, I guess, service to their artists. So if the artists like provide or give their fans exclusive songs that only the fans that are patrons of Patreon can get access to, and the artist wants to make sure that these tunes stay with these super fans that they are, the supporters that they have, you would basically offer the copy ID to Patreon, which would then offer it to the artists in order to embed it into their process of releasing the song and putting it on the platform, correct?
That's exactly right. And actually, we are working with a partner right now to start developing this, with a customer, starting a proof of concept to do exactly this, exchanging demos, and that's exactly right. We want to create a safe space also just for the music, let's say, and that we can, that there is no problems related to piracy anymore.
Cool. That's really a solution.
And you could even to do a totally shameless plug, potentially build in our new identity solution that's just getting started thanks to some EU grants.
What is that about? Do you want to tell a bit more about that? Can you already?
Not so much, but I mean, we can cover the basics, which is just that we have a huge identity problem when it comes to services, like, that you have a separate identity on every platform that you use, and you're not really in control of it. And so with distributed ledger technology that's moving in a different direction that would allow that kind of partnership to exist, where the data is still completely private on the part of the listeners. And so you can get the same benefit, but also have privacy intact.
Are you building this, or are you building, researching? I don't know which state you are in right now, but are you doing this for a later usage on Resonate?
Oh, yeah,
is it a
absolutely.
separate kind of business arm that also can be distributed to other platforms that they can use this technology, or is it it's not going to be
both?
Okay.
Yeah, both. Because we're working with partners in terms of this EU funding, and so there is a larger mission, and then the EU itself has a mission of for the next generation internet project, I think is what it's called. So
cool. One question that popped up in the chat is how does Patreon differ from crowdfunding companies like Kickstarter or Pledge Music? Can you give an example where you differentiate yourself?
Yeah, sure. I mean, so crowdfunding tends to be for a specific project, and it's like a one-off pledge that you would offer to the creator. Patreon is really about this long-term support. So it's monthly. You charge each month, and they get charged for a subscription. And the idea is that it's therefore predictable, and you're not on this constant fundraising journey, which you are with crowdfunding. And you can kind of use that money as you wish, rather than for a specific project. So it's a bit more flexible and long-term, and honing in on that relationship as well. Good question.
Do you screen the artists that on board on your platform? Can everybody become a Patreon creator?
Yeah, I mean, so everyone can sign up, and there's no exclusivity. You don't have to have a certain number of followers or fans or anything. And as long as you follow the community guidelines, that you're very much free to be on Patreon and do as you wish and offer what you want.
That's what I wanted to ask, the guidelines, because you don't the amount of people that are already on your platform. It's probably pretty tough to monitor them all simultaneously and see what they're putting up and what they're creating for their patrons. So a lot of we live in a time where we get a lot of misinformation. There's a lot of racism coming up. There's lots of like things that are happening on this planet that, and they're trying to use any kind of loophole to engage with audience that they're usually pretty okay. So my question was about like how can you make sure, or how do you like try to make sure that those people don't have a space on your platform except the community guidelines, but these people don't really care about community guidelines, I guess.
Yeah.
So, how do you deal with that?
Yeah, so we have like an amazing team of trust and safety who look at pages, obviously, as they're coming in and vet them and sort of look at what people are offering. So, and then we keep an eye, and we also rely on people reporting as well. Like, of course, if you see something on Patreon that you don't think should be there, there is going to be a human at the end of that and who looks at it. And, you know, obviously, if someone's outright creating hate speech, that's a really clear example of someone who wouldn't be allowed on Patreon. But if there's ever a situation in which, you know, someone makes a mistake and it's not intentional, I'm not talking about things like racism and hate speech. I'm talking about if you shared a piece of content, you know, and you weren't supposed to share it. We would always work to reform rather than, we're not just an algorithm that's just going to chuck you off the platform and take away your income. We always work with creators to make sure we're like, hey, you did this, you can't do that on Patreon, don't do it again. Thanks, as you were.
It seems like a lot of work that you're putting in to make this platform sustainable and in a way that it doesn't like go into the wrong direction.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. So yeah, what are your next plans? Let's like wrap this up, and I want to know from each of you, because you're all doing so many interesting and exciting things that I believe that this is not the end of the journey of the companies that you're speaking about. So can you tell what will be next for Patreon? Is there something that will be a new layer of things that come to it?
Well, I mean, internationalization is huge. As I said, that's really big for us. We're basically based in the US, but now outside of the US, focusing on creators around the world. And then a really exciting announcement they had a couple of weeks ago is that we're also going to introduce an element of discoverability on Patreon. So it used to be that you wouldn't go onto Patreon and just see musicians and be able to browse through and decide who to support. You used to be sent there from their Facebook or Instagram. But actually now we're going to build that in so you can go on Patreon, find the artists that you love, see their pages and support them. So it's going to be really game-changing, I think.
Cool, awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, for us it's growing step by step and having more and more clients using our solutions, because the more clients, we believe that the more clients use our solutions, the better the music industry or music ecosystem will look like, at least on a data point of view. And so the idea is to avoid or reduce any data-related issues in the future. So fingers crossed, we continue working in that direction.
Oh, good luck with that. And Peter, what are the next, like you told about this EU initiative fund that you're working on for the ID, and but what's next for Resonate? Is there like a significant step that we will see in the next couple of months?
I think it's really around the co-op. That's really where the growth is happening at the moment and where things are the most exciting. And we've had this identity problem ourselves, I think, for a while, not with in terms of digital identities, but you know, self-awareness, I guess you could say, because and I think it was even centered in myself in terms of like really looking at this as being too much of a startup and being embedded too much in startup culture. And so it's taken a while for the co-op to find itself as that kind of an organization. And that's really starting to explode at the moment. And so you can actually find out more and actually talk to some of the people in the team. If you go to the digital lounge, that there's a talk from 4 to 6 where some artists like Zola Jesus and AGF, a poem producer, they'll be joining members of the team, including our good friend Terry. She'll be on. And yeah, you can actually talk to folks that are engaged in that process.
Cool. So yeah, then I just want to conclude the entire session. I want to say thank you to all of you to like giving us all these insights and telling us how your services work and what a significant difference you're making to the industry and to the entire music ecosystem. So thank you for that. thank you everyone for watching out there. And yeah, as Peter said, look into the lounges, join people, and have fun if you're still in Hamburg and if you are on the Reeperbahn yourself. So enjoy the rest of the festival and to connect with other people. And wow, I just got told that we get another 10 minutes. That's awesome. I thought we only have 50 minutes. So that's super cool. So we can actually continue this conversation, which is extremely cool. So yeah, then I can ask you all the tons of questions that I didn't ask so far. That's pretty cool. So let's start with Pedro again, with Yuji. How do you guys? Because there was something that I was concerned about when we have this discussion about copyright directive and all that stuff that's going to happen. So how do you guys make sure that the content that artists or creators supply their fans with, that they have actually built them and created them themselves, that there's no copyright on it? And so do you have, as you said, that you're not going to use a lot of algorithm and you do a lot with human work, but as a human being, you can't know all the copyright work out there. So how do you make sure that this is not happening?
Yeah, so we generally suggest that people obviously have to take responsibility for owning the rights to anything that they're using, and they use platforms that do have the ability to track that and attribute things like royalties. And of course, if we ever get a report that someone's done something they aren't supposed to, again, we take it up with that. But it's not currently built in, such.
All right. Okay. Cool. So you're doing it all by hand, and if somebody flags it, then you take it down, or you talk to the creator that this is something he shouldn't have done.
Yeah, exactly.
And just to make it the entire bigger picture, so what Patreon is doing for the creators out there is amazing, but how is Patreon making money? At some point, the company also needs to survive. And we know, or most of us know, all the different business models that are out there when companies deal with artists. How is your approach for your business model for Patreon?
Yeah, so the way that Patreon makes money is it takes a small percentage of pledges from patrons. So you choose, as a creator, you can choose your plan. It's from 5 to 12%. So it's some of the most creator-friendly terms out there. And you can choose 5%, which means you just get a basic hosted page, the ability to set up membership. Then 8% you get more analytics about your patronage. You can have different features integrated into your page. 12%, it's things like having a one-on-one partner manager who basically has a complete, it's almost like your business manager where you go, how do I run this membership business? And that's totally in the hands of the creator. They choose what makes sense for them. They can always change it. And it's not huge percentages that we're taking, but it's at scale. That's kind of how I guess Patreon makes its money, isn't it?
Cool. How does it work on Resonate? Because if it's a cooperative, everybody owns the streaming service basically, and everybody also receives money out of that streaming service. But you still need to provide a technical infrastructure. You need to have people working on customer care and all that kind of stuff. So people need to get paid, even though it's a cooperative. So how does your stream-to-own business model or the business model of Resonate work in order to make the company or the cooperative, survive?
Well, I wouldn't say that it's actually doing that at the moment. We do depend at the moment on mostly volunteer contributions, as we have for most of our lifespan. We did have a brief period of time where we had some funding through a blockchain platform, which is a very, very long story, but can't get into today. But yeah, and the numbers are there that it can be a sustainable business. And I think it's really just a question of getting through this phase of really figuring out how to run a global cooperative organization, because that in and of itself is a unique phenomenon. I mean, like I said, co-ops have been around for 150 years, but they're almost predominantly local, regional, where people are getting together. And we've got folks all over the world. And so that's a unique challenge in terms of trying to manage and that. So if we get through that stage, I think that the talent's there. I mean, the kind of people that we are talking to that haven't made a public announcement yet is pretty like awe-inspiring. So it's just about being able to, you know, sustain growth and in that sense.
I like that first focus on the vision and try to get it out and then see how to make it sustainable. Thomas, when like you have so many different solutions that I think they all make sense, but there's one part that was in it then when it was about like monitoring, like you want to basically help the music companies or artists to monitor where their music got played. Is that correct?
Exactly.
So there's two questions. One question is, what kind of data you provide your clients with? Like, is it like the countries, the streaming services, the radio stations, or whatever? And if you provide them with all that data, how does that work? Are you do you have like APIs or connections to all the different DSPs and radio stations and people out there that you source the data from, or how can you do that in order, like?
Yeah.
How?
So. In the end, it's not so different from what other monitoring services propose. The innovation lies more in the business model in this case. Most of the monitoring services, at least all the ones that I know, they service their clients. They send reports, they provide a dashboard, but basically you are limited as a client on the actions that you can do. In our case, and also costs are just different. In our case, what we provide is we provide really the technology, and so basically you can imagine just that you can enter any stream that you want, so radios or television. We have partners that help us do that if needed. And then most of the cases, our clients would have their own catalog and audio files that they want to monitor. And so basically, we work with APIs, but just to match their catalog with the incoming streams. So they really. Or we can build exactly the tool that they want with the cost or the cost structure that they want. If they want us to have all the servers on our side, we can do that. If they have enough servers and they want to do it on their end, they can. It's really a matter of finding the best deal, let's say, for both parts. And we believe that there is a market for that because. It is pretty expensive. When we were at RightsUp, we were looking at monitoring services, and I remember that they were too expensive for us. I wouldn't be profitable. It's not even the fact that it's too expensive, it's the fact that it wouldn't be profitable for the use that we had at the time. So it's kind of also grew from that idea.
So it's all tailor-made, basically, solutions that you have the different bits and pieces and you put them together for the needs of your clients.
Yeah, a la carte.
A la carte menus for metadata, fingerprinting, audio. Do you also like, because what I think is super interesting is like the mix of different solutions that you have. So for example, the gamer example that you brought in, that gamers want to use music and you want to make sure that there's like, they have a license for that. Yeah. Do you cross manage these data so that you say, okay, this gamer listens to that music while he's filming himself, and so this artist might have an audience in that gaming space?
That's a good idea. We kind of provide, let's say, solutions, and we actually don't provide data to also answer your first question. We try not to provide data because the companies have their own data, and as we said, we want to give 100% of control to our clients over their data. So we are not going to. We can do that, but it's not our main focus. In the case of gaming, for example, we would that. Actually reflects our mentality.
Okay.
We have to stop, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
So suddenly we got like less time. This is kind of confusing, but I'm so sorry that I have to break you up here. So we are out here in 10 seconds. I want to say thank you again to all of you for being part of this discussion, and thank you for all of you there for watching this. And enjoy the rest of your day. And See you hopefully soon again on this channel or somewhere else. Bye.